Meeting will come to order. Minutes, I don't expect that you'll have minutes from the past meeting yet, because it just happened.
I do not.
So we'll move that. I believe the 24th is our final meeting and our next regularly scheduled finance meeting, so you get them when you can. Mayor's communication, anything beyond the agenda?
I think you have quite enough in front of you.
All right. No public here. Start with schools. Section 3, education. For the record, the business manager and the superintendent of schools are here. Nancy Folensby and Dale
Doron.
Doran. See, you got me doing it.
Really?
All
You
right.
can be trained.
I just want to say for the record that if I'm reading this right, the budget request was $15,549 for regular school, and the recommended is $400,000 more? Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the budget from last year.
Mhm.
We went up $400,000. What was your request? That's my question.
It's on there.
Where is it? Am I reading it?
It should be right on
The next page?
What page are you
I was on page
the
37.
hesitating is, I don't know if you've got, Net school
38,
spending
got it,
and non-net
requested.
school spending
So in other words, you got what you requested, exactly.
we did.
Yes.
And the mayor's done that now 2 years in a row.
They're very
Yes.
special.
Well, let me say something here, and I said this to Dale.
You know they have cutting authority, right?
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
I'm kidding.
Well, I hope not. I'm not gonna vote that. For many years, it was difficult for the schools to get what they requested. And of course, it would be printed in the press that we were cutting the schools when we actually increased the budget, but had to cut the request. I am thrilled that the mayor has found it capable of doing this, and that the school department has requested an amount they thought could be actually funded. Not something like, well, we'd love to have $1 million for this, but I know we can't have it, but we're gonna ask for it anyway. And that's not happening anymore, and I'm thrilled about that. It's realistic budgeting, in my opinion. I'm looking at page 37. Do anybody, I don't have any questions on this page. I'm just curious if the finance committee has any, or if there's anything, I should let you speak to the budget if you'd like to, what you're bringing back. Nancy, I know you're bringing back some more school teachers or whatever.
Yes, certainly. We also want to say how pleased we are that the city has worked with us on helping us to bring back positions that we've lost, and to help us make growth. Our enrollment is growing, and so that also indicates a need to grow the budget to support the increasing enrollment. But I also want to praise Dale Doran, our Director of Business Services, and her very careful budgeting and the budgeting process that she goes through with us. Everyone understands the budget well, and the requests that are made by personnel in the school department are very modest requests, and they're requests based on identified needs. So we're very pleased with that, and we ended up asking for 5 positions at this point, yeah. And,
Which are?
And Dale, I'm gonna let you go through that.
I think it's important to say that it's an essential services budget, and by that I mean it includes all those things: personnel, supplies, services, programs that we believe that we'll need in the fall to serve students well from East Hampton. So rather than simply holding on to everything that we had, we looked at what we needed. So this budget, there are some things that have gone away. For example, the one that comes immediately to the top of my head is there's a reduction of 1 full-time equivalency and a day a week of paraprofessional time at the high school, because in looking at the composition of students, it wasn't believed that that was needed. So while it does add some things have been reduced as well.
Well, what is that position that was cut then?
It was a paraprofessional, full-time paraprofessional at the high school. That's an example, just one example that I'm giving you that comes immediately to mind. and a day a week of a paraprofessional at the high school. So a full-time position will be .8.
I guess what I'm getting at is you're trading one position to bring back another position?
I guess what I'm saying is, you know, the idea with an essential services budget is we looked at what we really needed, and if there were personnel or programs or services that we don't need next year, they've been reduced from the budget. But it adds 5 positions that had been cut in previous years, brings them back. A 3rd grade teacher at Center Pepin, a 6th grade teacher and a custodian at the middle school, an English teacher, and a physical education paraprofessional at the high school. All of those teaching or paraprofessional positions are to address the increased enrollment that the superintendent mentioned. The custodian is a position that was cut a good number of years ago at Whitebrook that has put it in the position of not really being able to adequately take care of the building that it needs to be. It's out of par, I would say, with the other buildings. So it brings the level of staffing there back up to what we have in the other school buildings.
And I just want to mention that this physical education paraprofessional, this is a new position for us. We have some large PE classes, and not large enough that we needed to have another teacher, to fund another teacher, but large enough that we felt that we needed another person in some of these classes to assist the physical education teacher. So this was sort of an innovative idea of addressing that. We worked with Ryan Miller, our physical education teacher, and Kevin Burke, the principal, and came up with this idea, and we're thinking it's going to work very well for us and be modestly priced, and excuse me, let me get this one.
There are some PE classes at the high school this year that are approaching, or scheduled for next year rather, that will have 35 students in it, and 35 students.
And this, I assume kids that play sports are gonna be in these, but it would target students that don't get the physical education of playing on a team, I would
All of
think.
the students
Is this a
receive-
required?
Yes.
That's
yeah,
so good to
yeah,
hear.
Yeah. But it becomes a safety issue having 35 teenagers active.
And they're moving quick.
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
a parent, I went out there, I helped out with some gym classes.
Yeah, so,
Oh, I'm glad.
Great.
What was I gonna ask?
it's really a
In the
safety
era
concern.
of textbooks and renewal of technology, renewal of textbooks or getting updated materials
Mhm.
in the education realm, are we able to do that? I mean, I know you said essential, so I'm not sure how that relates to getting
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
or newer textbooks. I don't know how old they are.
Each of the principals have a plan in place for curriculum material renewal on a cycle.
And you're able to fund it as they have requested this year?
We have been able to fund it.
Good.
There's a.
How is the technology at the school, if you can answer that? Is it up to date?
It is improving. It has improved.
No.
It has improved a lot. The high school being a new building that has a brand-new network is, I would say, state-of-the-art.
good.
And the middle and elementary schools are leaps and bounds beyond where they were, say, 3-4 years ago. All students have access to state-of-the-art technology
Now, they
in
don't-
all of the buildings.
And I'm sorry, I'm just asking this, and you have to forgive me because there's a grandparent inside of me who has kids in the high school. Do they get the opportunity to bring a laptop home with them if they need it? Because not everybody can have the computers at home. They don't have the parents don't have the money to buy that kind of technology.
I
We
don't
don't
know
support-
that there is a program
loaner program or anything?
where students can bring it home, with the exception of some assistive technology for students with identified special needs.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But they have access to computer technology, the computer labs at school,
Mhm.
and they're allowed to use them, like in the library on their
Yeah,
break
yeah,
times.
the library is really well outfitted with technology, so students who may not have it at home can access it in the library.
You mean the
at high
library
school.
and.
At the high school.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. That's just what I thought you meant,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I thought that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be great if Mr. Gates could send us some computers. I'll ask him next time I see him. Do you guys have any questions on page 38, 39, I guess? Or no, we're on 38.
That's this, right? What you're looking at?
I'm looking
We'll
at the one that
discuss
says
that
budget
some other time.
preparation sheet,
Yeah.
school personnel services,
So
the
not-
first line.
Not the school budget.
It is the school budget.
There's two
There's a
lines to the school budget.
The first line is the school, the second line is transportation. The first one, the page I'm looking at says Department 3000 under comp description,
Right.
and you printed it out.
But
And
I also am looking at the actual school budget.
The school, line by line
Yes.
budget, yeah.
So I have a
oh, I
question.
don't have access to that. Is
I-
that online?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's,
Speaking of technology, get to know
Well,
it.
you were all given
No,
that.
I
You
have to
provided
tell you,
everybody that.
can I
Yeah.
say that my philosophy in that is, as a parent, it's interesting to me, but from the
As a
finance
user, I
committee's
want to know your
purview,
school.
if we disagree with that, then I don't know how we answer that question, because that's the school committee and the superintendent's role to divide the money we give them up. So I don't get into that too much personally.
May I get into it?
You can do whatever you want,
I
I'm
mean,
just telling you why I don't
I
bring
just
it
have a
up.
question.
Well, I'm just saying, we don't normally go into the detail, but of course you can.
But you were just asking about technology, so this,
Okay, good. All right.
I think the superintendent sent out copies of the actual school budget, line item.
I think we were told,
Yeah,
I
at
didn't
the
have
beginning of the
personally.
budget season.
Sometime.
What happens, what the school department does,
Prior
they-
to the hearing.
Right, when they provide it to me, they provide it to you, so when.
Just to the finance committee though, right?
Yes, well,
Yes,
yes.
Just to the
And they would have been in your.
Okay, you might have got one.
Yeah.
God knows where it is.
But if it's online, that's even better.
Yeah.
it was a while ago, it was previous to the
It's
hearing,
when
which occurred in March.
It's in March, and
Yeah.
what happens is soon as the due date, the due date for the school to give me their budget is later than, it's February, toward the end of February for the city departments, and it's March, I'm gonna just guess like in the 15, 16. And when they present it to me, that's their proposed budget.
Mhm.
They also give a copy to the finance subcommittee. Did you get yours, Dan? Yeah.
I think I
So-
got mine, but
I don't know where
again,
it is, but that's
Yeah.
neither here nor there.
And it just goes in your little mail
Yeah,
slot.
little cubby.
Speaking of schools,
So it's a long
Little
road to
cubbies.
nowhere. Special ed. So it looks like it's remaining flat to last year.
wow,
And
that's a nice thing.
But we actually spent more last year. The budget was 505, they spent 531.
Are you
So-
looking at transportation specifically?
No, I'm looking at
What
special
line is
ed.
it?
This is their budget.
Right?
Why don't you?
Are you looking at the total
bring your
budget?
iPad over there.
No, I'm looking at just the section that's special education.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then, what's the line here? Maybe I'm not, you're right, okay. 2.8 million, 2.2 billion, sorry. And it was 2.3. So that's a difference of, I don't know. We spent, I guess, an extra $100,000 over budget last year compared to what we planned for, from what I'm gathering here.
what they plan for.
What they planned for.
And they can
So-
transfer within their own budget.
Okay, so you're more or less, give or take 10,000, 15,000 you're proposing, or you've been given more or less the same amount for last year. When you talk about essential services, here's where I'm going with this very long circuitous pattern. Has there not been any significant changes that you feel or the school feels are needed in the realm of special education? Were there any gaps? Was there anything uncovered? Anything that needs beefing up, I guess?
Well, within the budget, if you look year to year, budget to budget, needs shift all the time. I would say that special ed is the most volatile portion of the budget. It changes a lot all the time. So the trick is to budget enough to be able to provide for needs you don't know about yet.
Right.
That could happen, but still sort of toe the line. And there are some shifts in how money is spent year to year based on the population changing that we're serving.
And you have a certain sense of, as kids are moving through the system, where they are now, where they will likely be next year.
Exactly.
And then new, I guess, plus new.
Exactly,
would be new.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I was just curious if
Yeah.
there was any.
Yeah.
But if that makes sense, that you kind of plan for a certain level because you have no idea what could be coming down the road.
Right, right.
All right.
And some very costly things
Mhm.
can happen that you don't plan for.
Right.
If a student moves in from out of district mid-year and they're in a residential placement,
Yeah.
you could pick up a $200,000 placement with a $100,000 transportation price tag.
Yeah.
So, you're always trying to budget as conservatively as you
Yeah.
can, but know that there's gonna be some change during the year.
Okay.
So let me ask you this. First of all, this budget, since it's identical to what the mayor's given you, it has been approved by the school committee, and that's what you're working with.
Yes.
And then if you need to make a change, the school committee needs to approve it, just like the council approves the mayor's
Yeah.
supplementals. Do you have a reserve fund or some kind of a fund to cover for the kid that might move in or something like that?
There is a revolving fund that is funded by the state for extraordinary special ed costs. It's called Circuit Breaker.
But
And what we've tried.
circuit breaker, okay.
Yeah, what we've tried to do, when I assumed my position, there was not a reserve in the circuit breaker, it all had been used. What we're trying to do is build it up so that there is a reserve for some of those really expensive things that you might not know about that happen mid-year.
But if your needs suddenly exceed the circuit breaker fund, or if there's a need that you didn't anticipate, does, in the budget someplace, do you have contingency reserve money like the mayor has? I'm just curious.
There's,
in order to cover for
there's
that.
some contingency, modest contingency, I would say, certainly not for not a district placement, but there's some modest contingency within the special ed operating budget. And then sort of the extraordinary contingency would be the circuit breaker account
Yeah.
and/or the school choice reserve.
I bring it up just so people understand, there's two systems here. Your system, just like ours, the school superintendent says, I need more money here, and I recommend we take it from this account, and the school committee approves it.
Right.
That's how it works. And I bring this up because I don't recall
Okay,
very often ever getting something from the mayor to supplement
Okay,
the
I can clear,
school's budget.
I can answer directly to what you're leaning toward, Dan. As you had just said, the choice money, when choice money comes into the city,
Mhm.
it goes to the school. It
Right.
does not come into the regular.
Well, it was
for-
anticipated to go to the school, right?
Okay, so
It goes to the school.
it, when choice money comes in, it goes to the school, and they, for lack of a better explanation, use that as their reserve. We budget a reserve. You'll see we actually have a department, which is
Yeah, I
our
know that.
reserve amount. So what the school department likes to do is use that for, student purposes. So you'll see, once in a great while, which you saw this year, they had, this bizarre boiler issue, which they don't
That's right.
really, they prefer not to use those type of reserves for
That's right. Yes, I remember
non-student
that now.
issues. So that came to me as a request, and I put that forward to use out of, whether free cash or.
Wherever we spend.
Yeah, because it obviously was a legitimate expense
Mhm.
and not something, related to students and heating the building type thing and having hot water, but not a student expense.
So the
that was-
choice money, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Right.
Is money that you don't put into the budget as anticipating a certain amount of revenue from choice, but you, when it does come, because people might choice in and you won't know that until later in the summer and the September, that money that comes in, you put into a reserve kind of placement, or you move it
Yeah,
where
well,
you.
some of it. Some of it we use every year
Mhm.
to offset the request to the city for funding.
Okay.
We're using some of it this year, but then we're also trying to keep some in reserve for those kinds of situations
plan.
that we just discussed.
For exactly what you're asking.
And,
Very
and
good.
more often than not, it would probably be a special ed situation, because they're the ones that are hardest to
But I
predict.
completely forgot about the boiler, and that's a great example.
Right.
When something like that happens, you go to the mayor, because you don't have the money for that.
Right.
Okay.
And,
cool.
and to use money that you're, that you're really trying to reserve for student needs, the boiler doesn't seem to.
Well, they gotta keep
Fit
them
under there.
warm, but
Yeah,
still.
right.
So the school choice, circuit breaker, and other revolving accounts are kind of grouped as that reserve, if you will, or
Yeah,
excess.
yeah.
And then the federal and state grants, who knows, because you haven't gotten them yet.
Right.
That's a fluid number that you hope for, but you may or may not get.
But those grants are targeted to specific
Well,
items
they're
you've applied
very
for.
specific, and have
Right.
become more so over the years.
Did you do the 17 budget?
I
Were you
did.
involved?
Yes.
Because you can definitely see a big jump from
16?
circuit breaker number and
Mhm.
school choice number. Clearly, if you were trying to get more money in there, it's reflecting in there. So
You
that's
know,
good.
Dale and Nancy have worked really diligently on putting things where they go and doing some cleanups and moving and shifting. And it's really, it's been a pleasure for me to work with both of them and.
I think Dale brought a really, a very good process
Mhm.
to our budget.
And an explanation to the, to the finance subcommittee of the school department, and then, of the school committee, and, explaining it, and obviously your work with the administrators throughout the year, gathering, their needs. So it's been a pleasure working with the
I
school
did want to
administration.
acknowledge the work that the administrators do,
Mhm.
because if they really can understand their budget and it's really transparent, they're much better managers of their budget, and they've done a really terrific job in the last 2 years of managing their budgets. I mean, that special ed budget in particular is really hard to manage, and
Did they have
Sarah
a-
Mochak does a very good job, as do the rest of the administrators.
That's great.
I think it's I always get this mixed up, intra-departmental transfers. Do they have the ability within their school to move money from one area to the other? Do they have to go to the superintendent or to the school committee? I guess it depends on what it is. I mean, obviously personnel costs maybe, but if they decide they need to move money from supplies here to supplies there, they can do that.
They're able to make transfers within their own budget from line to line, as long as, with the superintendent's and my
Both sign
review,
off on
You have to sign off on it, but doesn't
Right.
have to go to the school committee.
over $5,000 it goes to the school
Okay,
committee.
that's what I wanted.
And they have to approve it
So
in
there is a
addition.
lot of checks and balances on
There
it. I
is.
say that for the camera, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they know that everybody's watching.
It's not the same purchase order process, but you
Yeah.
just do yours online. Everything is signed off, your purchase order is
Right,
signed
all
off
our-
on.
Right.
They have
We sign
Okay.
off on all
Mhm.
of that.
But I just know that the governmental process, getting something to the finance, to the council, then it goes to the finance committee, then it has to be approved at a public hearing, that takes time. And it's good to hear that there's a system in place that allows you to make decisions, because they're probably more current, more timely, if you will, because the school's every day. So,
Exactly.
that's good to hear. Any other questions on the general budget? I have a question on, and it may be me not understanding this, I don't know why. I'm looking at the transportation budget, which is being requested and recommended for $983,000. Now, there's a figure here of non-net spending per SER. Is that per person? 12,240? I don't understand what that means, because it says, this might be a typo, it says original budget 967. Do you see what I'm getting at, Dan? Am I?
You're looking at.
Line, Department 30001, Transportation,
Salary stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I'm wondering what that means, 12,240.
That was put into a format once we submitted our stuff to the city, so I'm not sure. There's a requirement by the state that you separate out non-net school spending from
I thought it
net
was,
school
it
spending.
cost
and-
$12,000 to transport a student per year. Is that true? I don't know, that's what I thought that was. see that, Melissa? Do you
He's
understand?
questioning this.
No, I think all they did here was put it, this line and that line
I
right
think.
there.
Yeah,
And we
it's a
broke it out
different-
this
it's a
year again.
different
They had it broken
line.
out, it wasn't, and now it's
I don't-
broken out
like,
again.
one
The
is-
line below it.
One's like 5-1, one's 5-2.
He just wants to go into this.
It's part of the transportation, like when she moved it, like when something goes into an adjusted budget, she moved it for whatever reason, like because, I mean, it could be monitors on the bus or buses to, for a field trip or something that wasn't paid by a revolving fund. Anything like in that adjusted
I
line,
got it
Valerie
now.
moved.
So that adjusted plus the 967 gets us 983.
It's our auditor that moves them, like what she does. She
Okay,
adjusts our budget.
that's the she you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's 2017, so she did an adjustment to
Right.
what we had budgeted, which was a number that we threw in there.
Okay, got
And
it.
increase it by 12,
I got you.
240,
Okay.
and we could go back and find,
You'll see in some
Probably
of,
a
in some
bus
of
trip
ours,
or
yeah,
some
where
special
where we
thing.
do the
12,240,
transfers,
I
how it
think
turns
it's the
into
bus
an adjusted
monitors.
Mhm.
Right.
amount.
I think the 12,240 is the bus monitors.
And that's been added after the fact. Okay.
well, it was
Yeah.
probably in.
It was probably accounted for in,
personnel, and then when they were adjusting it to where the true cost, like it's part of transportation cost, not part of staffing It's staffing, but it's staffing.
So it's non-net school, so it's to meet that requirement of
Did we
separating
add
out
monitors to the buses this year?
They've always.
We've always had them.
So we just needed more money paid.
No,
it's
I
not-
think what happened last year is that it was probably accounted for in personnel, and it's
Okay.
really a transportation
So it went
expense.
to-
Oh,
So it got
I
moved.
got
Probably
it now.
moved it
Yeah.
out of
They
one.
moved it to
Yeah.
non-net
See,
spending.
In
Yeah.
15 and 16, it does the same thing. There's 11,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the bus monitors.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so maybe when I read the budget and threw in the transportation number, I didn't see it as separate, so, they just fixed it.
That's okay. It's fine. I
Does it
knew
So
there was
that
go
it
an
gets
with the
aspect.
reported
line?
the way the state wants it reported.
Does it go
Correct.
with the line below? Is that, like, the 963, I mean, we have 0 under purchase of service for original budget, and then we have 963,000 under the adjusted. So I'm
Well, one
wondering
is-
if that
One
967.
is staffing and one is bought services, so.
Non-net spending purchase of service is somebody,
My guess is it just went into this top line and 0 went into the bottom line and then they adjusted it. That's what I'm
Right,
assuming.
so one is personal services, which it means it's a
Bodies.
body, and 2 is a contract.
if we look at the total down at the very bottom, 975, I think it adds up, all of those lines.
Well, they definitely add up.
Yeah.
So that's, I understand that, and you increased it for next year, anticipating increase in salaries or bus costs.
The contract will go up.
Oh, yeah, remember, in this,
For sure.
the contract will go up, but because of that thing we just passed, you're able to save some money? Is it next year, or is it?
Still in the process of
Because that's a
working
new
our way through that.
contract. Okay.
But,
All right.
regardless of the route we take, the contract will go up next year. Yeah.
Okay.
It increases every year.
While you were out, Nancy asked a question about technology and keeping up to date, and she answered that the state-of-the-art, the high school, because it's new, has state-of-the-art technology, but, computers, do they renew? They have a renewal plan
Yes.
for those? I know they have a renewal plan for other things, but,
Yes, actually, it's built in a renewal plan. He's really very efficient about that.
so he gets new computers every 5 years because technology changes the day after you buy the computer, but.
I don't know what his
I
schedule
think
is.
the cycle is a little longer than that.
Yeah.
I think every 7 years would be a safer, that everything turns over in a 7-year period.
But he has
I know
up-to-date
that next
software.
year, the laptops at the middle school are being updated or replaced.
And I had asked, and I don't know, it's probably not possible, because I know a lot of kids, a lot of the less fortunate kids that go to the school don't have computers at home, and I had asked, is there any lending possibility? But I know that kids can get at the labs in the library to do some work, these kids that don't have that. Is there anything on the docket to help kids like that? I mean, I don't know how many there are, but I can't imagine that $1,000 for a laptop, or even a small one, it's affordable for a lot of people.
We looked into a rental program at one point in time, that was quite a few years ago, but there were so many strings attached to it and so many things that would make it really difficult to manage that we abandoned that idea. Kids now are using their smartphones a lot, and almost every
To type
kid-
their papers? No.
No, not to type their papers, but to access, for instance, the Moodle courses that some of our teachers have at the high school. You know, Sean Sheehan has a flipped classroom, so they can watch the lectures at home.
But that's telling, if they all have smartphones, which cost quite a bit of money,
A lot.
then
A lot more than
maybe
a-
I'm
than a
reading into
laptop.
something that's not there.
The new
The
ones are more than
technology
a
is,
laptop.
kids are getting the
You're
technology.
kidding, my
Yeah.
friend, or $700.
All right, good. Anyway, I don't have any other questions. How about you guys?
I do not either.
Yeah.
Very much.
I'm going to make a motion so that school persons can go to dinner. I'm going to read these motions because they're a little more complicated. I move that the City Council Finance Committee recommend to the full council that the city raise and appropriate the sum of $16,929,214 for the various departments listed under Section 3 schools, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations as recommended by the mayor and the finance subcommittee. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So this is what I wrote
Yep,
before the
I have
word
a copy.
raise. Well, yeah, but I wrote this in because it
Oh, I
changes it
see.
to the finance committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, employee,
And thanks to the school committee, finance subcommittee also. And
Yes,
to you guys.
yes,
I've
absolutely.
been there.
Yeah, I know you have.
It's not always fun.
he's probably gonna go back after working for us here. This is boring, you know.
It's more fun now, Dan.
Yeah, it's not boring.
Devin, boring wouldn't be the
So
word.
this is what I wrote on the bottom.
Have a good evening.
Am I right?
Thank you
Yeah,
again.
Start that and move the word raise it. And I'll do the same thing. All right, so we're going to employee benefits. Well, I noticed that chapter 32B is up 9.67%. I guess that was, we've been able to manage to keep that down, but it's up now, huh? What is that?
Right,
The
so what I
trust,
did-
that's still the trust.
Right, so what I did is, we asked it, actually, what I have is,
32B is healthcare.
I have a little spreadsheet of all the, you remember the years when they were 0, and so I have a spreadsheet that says what increases we had throughout the years and what increases we didn't. As you know, this year, this is a big hit. We knew about it, well in advance, which didn't make it any less difficult to swallow. But I also had asked that the administrator of the trust provide us with, comparable, like, we wanted to make sure that everyone knows the cost of insurance, health insurance is going up. But I also had them give me an estimate, a cost comparison for the GIC.
Yeah, I was wondering if you do that every year.
Because you hear the GIC all the time, just so you know that even though these are the costs, we know that they're very high. We also know that other ones are going up, but it's also good to always compare to see that even though this has increased, we are still getting a much better plan for a less price.
Really?
So, yes.
And the GIC?
So, yes, much less. And a matter of fact, $897,803 less than the GIC. And the GIC plan.
And that's a comparable plan?
It is not a comparable plan because the GIC does not compare to
Oh.
us at all.
And-
It has deductibles, it has limits, it's comparing a very premium plan like we have to a much, much lesser plan with higher deductibles, so you're paying, well, $897,000 more and getting a whole lot less. But I always ask that we do this just so that we always know that we're being competitive and we're always checking costs. And then I also, I couldn't remember, I knew that we had some minimal increases the last couple of years. There were many years where it was 0. As a matter of fact, 11 to 12 was 0, 12 to 13
Yes,
was
I
0,
remember
and
that.
0 increase at all in our plan. 13 to 14 was 0, 14 to 15 was 0. And then 15 to 16, it went up 1.5%. So our increases.
That's why I knew it was coming. We had it on for years.
We all knew it was on its way, and last year it was 6.6, which was like a huge hit. And by doing that, what's been happening, and the trust has a reserve, and they've been eating up all of these, costs, which really was against the trust administrator's advice, because he said, you can't keep eating up your reserve.
That's just to
So-
keep premiums down.
So
They
this
were
year
doing that.
alone, even though our plan has increased by the 9.6, we are, well, actually, it's a little more than that. The trust is eating almost 1 million of it. So
Really?
they're trying, yeah, so
It
they're
could be
trying.
10% or 11%?
Yeah, so they're trying to build up their reserves. The last report I had of their reserves, okay, so in 15, they had a little over 25 million reserve. In 16, they were down to 18 million reserve. So you can see how their reserve has really hit bottom.
Is that reserve designed to cover catastrophic injury, that a claim that someone would put in a city or town?
That's extra insurance that they would pick up, but that reserve is for the health, for the health insurance. And what they want to do is be able to have that. And obviously, when they were picking up, when you see zero increase, all these years, they're picking up, there was an increase, they were just picking it up. So now, the trust voted, and as East Hampton, we have a member, we have a vote on the trust. They voted to do, the increase, which is 6.95.
Is that increase
and-
across the board the same for every community, or is it dependent? It's the same increase, of course, ours is higher
Yes.
because more employees.
It's more money for us because we're one of the
We have
larger
larger
ones.
communities.
Right, so it's more money, but it's the same percentage.
Okay.
And the other thing about the trust, what is very valuable for a community like ours in South Hadley, we're like pretty much the two biggest members in there. What's very valuable is it doesn't go, your costs are split. So it doesn't go where you have a community that's a very high-risk community, which is you guys, and then some that have
We don't have a
less
high
claims.
risk, do we?
So are they pooled? Is the risk pooled then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But
we
our
all
risk
pay
is
the
low,
same.
right?
So that's very,
No, we have a higher risk, Melissa? You made a face. I don't know.
Yeah.
We have a lot of injuries or a
Yeah.
lot of healthcare issues?
yes, because it can be
We
catastrophic.
have older citizens.
It could be anything, and
This is
really,
all
but
employees.
the most amazing thing to me this time was that I found out that, like with transplants,
Yeah.
cancer, chemo, all very expensive things that go by but what's really driving the costs are prescriptions. And that
Always.
surprised me.
Across the nation.
That surprised me.
But it's
I was
really-
thinking it would be,
Do we have less
Transplants.
retirees? Well, that went up 110,000, but it doesn't seem like a lot.
what, Dan, are you?
Retirement. I mean, our retirement health insurance went up 4.45%, but that's not terrible. So
increase comes with different.
their increase comes at a different time.
My next open enrollment's in January.
Oh, you're under okay, I see where you are. You're under Medicare? No?
No, I'm under retirement. I'm on page
Okay.
76. Are you on that? You guys on that? I just noticed it was only 4.45%.
Well, don't forget, retirees, it's 50/50. There's a different percentage that we pay for if you're a retiree of the city, you pay 50% of your insurance. If you're an active employee, you pay 25% of your insurance. So it's a different,
It's a different plan.
totally.
Well, it's great that it didn't go up terribly. I mean, what do you think? It went up too bad, or?
She has it right there.
4.5.
Yeah, you got it right, Judy.
Yeah.
Where are you? So MedX.
Okay, so,
So MedX, see, the last
Well,
it's-
increase we had was
what
in
if you-
16, we
well,
won't
you
know
don't
until
have it.
17, but it's
Right.
because it's on a different schedule.
Do you have it by page? Because we're on page 76. Okay, it's just, it pleased me. And what pleases me is also, although it's 7%, it's not terrible. Compared to healthcare and workers' comp, 7% total insurance, I
Right,
guess
'cause
we
you
could
s-
call it, or
mhm.
and benefits, it's not. Do we anticipate that healthcare is gonna go up 10% every year now?
Oh,
or
let's
this
hope
just-
not.
You'd have no
I'm
idea,
gonna tell you
right?
what's gonna happen. You know, the trust meets regularly and we have a vote. And what's gonna happen is they're having to constantly look at the plan. And they make changes when they have to, whether they increase co-pays. I know everybody's hoping that they're not going to look at deductibles, because that's a hardship for people.
But they didn't change the plan this year, they just raised
They
the
did
premium
not.
for the same plan.
They did not. Once in a great while, there'll be increases in your doctor copay, prescription
Who's
tiers.
your prescription provider? Do you
Well,
have a
we ha-
special prescription provider?
You can, I'm not exactly sure who is I know you can get your prescriptions everywhere, but I don't know, but we also have a Canadian prescription that they want people to use, and that's where you get the 90-day supplies, and that's what they're really, so I've had them come and talk about that to not only the seniors,
much
but they were here at
cheaper.
open enrollment, because some of them, if it's on that list, some of them are actually free.
Is this administered by
Yeah.
Blue Cross Blue Shield still?
This is the Blue Cross Blue Shield fund.
Yeah, it's a
yes.
plan, but they
It's the,
administer it somehow, or?
it's the trust that administers the
Right, okay.
plan.
But you get a
So
Blue
we
Cross
don't- right.
Blue Shield card if you're a employee or something.
Right, our card is Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's an HMO.
Okay.
So anyway, it's,
If we don't get the,
that's where
but
we're at.
if you have plan changes, the trust recommends plan changes, you have to go back to the union contract.
No, not if they're not gonna, what they do is they'll look at costs, like I said, they'll look at your co-pays, they don't need to go back to bargaining units when you're changing your physician copay from $15 to $20,
Oh, you
that type
don't?
of thing.
Oh,
No.
okay. Oh,
No.
I didn't know.
Just like these are increases, this is an increase also to our employees, because they pay
25% of it.
25% of it. So, we've already sent out letters to everybody and sheets with the new prices on and telling them, it starts July 1st for them too, so it's an increase for everybody.
Yeah.
But, a benefit is exactly that,
But
it's
the
a
plan,
benefit.
if you were to raise deductibles, that would have to be negotiated, right? Or something like that, if it's
I
a
don't
big
think so.
change? You don't know? Oh,
I don't think so.
okay.
I
All
don't
right.
think so, because you don't have a choice. It's if you're to change from Blue Cross Blue Shield to a different, if we were to get out of the trust and change from a different company, that type of thing. Some of them have Blue Cross Blue Shield in there, but it is a Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance.
Go with the 90-day drugs.
Yeah,
It's so
well,
much cheaper.
That's
I do
what
that
they're
at
trying.
CVS now.
So a
Harvard
lot of
Blue.
people have figured that out, but what they're doing now and we did it in open enrollment, they're, talking about it and, having meetings. They had separate meeting for the retirees to tell them, if you don't use this, and you can ask us if that, not us, but you can ask them if your specific prescription is covered, because it's so much cheaper. And sometimes it's even free, and it's 90-day supplies.
Yeah.
For people
And
that
if
are
you
on
get
a
your
regular
doctor to
prescription.
write like a higher dose and take half a pill, then you can get, because some of the dosage, whether it's 100 milligrams, 200, or 300, same price.
Mhm.
So if you can get your doctor to write a 200 milligram and take half a pill, you get twice as much
Yeah,
for the
you
same
cut it
price.
with a little
Yeah.
cutter. Yep.
There's a lot of ways around it.
There
You just
is.
have to
So,
Sounds like you've been to the pharmacy a lot.
work for them.
so they're
Okay.
trying to really get that word out, even, but honestly, when it comes to
Yeah.
people that take prescriptions, they're usually very sharp as to, who has the best
Yeah.
price.
Yeah.
You
They've
hear all
shopped.
they shop around, and then they also take advantage usually of what started as mail orders.
Right.
And now much more, it's much quicker,
Yeah.
but, the 90 days. It
There's
saves
something else in
sometimes
the
it-
insurances that stands out, workman's comp is up, but that's obviously something you anticipate.
Right.
But other than that, a big drop in unemployment, but you never know on that, right?
It's not a
So-
big number. so-
Well,
It's not a big number, it's only
But with the
$20,000.
school, they're not like in years where there's been cuts and layoffs, we're certainly not planning on any,
Okay. Well, I don't have any other questions on this, do you guys?
No.
Okay. This is benefits, section 8. Make a motion that the City Council Finance Committee recommend to the full council that the city raise and appropriate the sum of $8,503,420.50 for the various departments listed under section 8 employee benefits, that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and finance subcommittee. Water and sewer enterprise, $628,964.64.
Water and sewer?
It's on the thing, I'll explain. Somebody second.
Second.
That's because benefits pays for everybody, schools and water and sewer, given their revenue is a user fee, we can charge them a user fee, the water department or the water and sewer department for the cost.
Excuse me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Section 5, Human Services. Modest increase of 2%, everything looks good. We just gave the veterans more money. Did you anticipate that in this budget, or are you just gonna
We
wait
try
for
to.
reserve?
We-
Just use reserve if you have to, okay.
Exactly. No one turns down the veterans when they come back.
Okay.
It's, moderately increased, but.
We can go into each one of the departments. It's listed as we go along here on page 6061 is Board of Health. There's an increase in salary. Is that a step?
Yep.
Okay. You see where I am?
There are two employees there that have been here less than 5 years, I think.
Okay. The clerical is just
We have 9
part-time,
steps, by
part-time.
the way. We gotta get rid of that.
Is the Board of Health clerical position combined with other positions? That's a small
No,
amount, or is
she
it
just
just
does that
part-time?
one.
Is that
Yeah,
part-time?
she does that, and then
She's-
she's got a couple lines, and if you look at the details, she's got a couple lines in there because they separate for tracking purposes, that she does the minutes of the meeting, and that's over and above her office hours, so that
This is the
fluctuates.
same,
Person.
It's, right, it's a part-time clerical position.
oh, the part-time clerical position. Okay,
Yeah,
got
and
it.
she's luckily enough for the department, she does their board minutes too. But we try to keep it separate so that we know the cost of it
Okay.
somewhat.
What's, I can't tell where that line is going. I know that's requested. I don't know if it's postage or professional services. I can't.
There's both.
One was requested 2215 and they got
1,000.
Which
Oh,
one was that?
she only spent 505.
That's professional
Service,
services.
okay.
And that's
So-
outside contracting of services, right?
Right, she figures if she has to, hire outside contracting services, and we figure when that comes up, we'll handle it, and this is typical PEG where you ask for something and you get something else.
You asked for the moon. and-
Yeah,
Well, it sounds
And-
like, I mean, she only spent, if I'm reading this
Right,
right, $505 last year.
$590.
right.
Or is that a nine?
And-
Okay, but
and-
why would she ask for 21?
Well, they get concerned that they might have, a difficult year, and we figure if that happens, then that's what we
That's what you
plan
use a
for.
reserve for.
That's what we use the reserve for.
Okay. Any other questions on the Board of Health? Council on Aging, minor increase in salary. Is that just COLA?
Just steps and,
Is that a step too?
just nothing.
We have that position open still, Council on Aging?
They had,
Part-time, right?
right.
I thought it was, what's her name was leaving.
They had, oh, no, she's not.
She changed her mind?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
She
that's
asked
good
if
to
she
hear.
could change her mind, and I said, done.
Yep, let's take this down.
That's it.
What is longevity?
If you're
Oh,
here.
we ask this every year.
Oh,
I know.
it's
Sorry.
hysterical. If you were an employee like me and you're here 10 years, you have to be here 12 years to get your 10-year longevity. No, but after 10 years, you get longevity, which is $100. After a year,
Extra?
yeah, you get $100, and it's given out in December if you're here over 10 years. After 15, it goes up, I think, to 200.
Is this separate, is this as if you didn't get any steps, you get this anyway?
Yes, you get this anyway, it's
Just
just
for-
added to your, well, the school gets actually, most of them are supposed to be like a week's pay.
Oh, okay.
So ours is very antiquated, but I know that I had to be here 12 years to get my 10-year step, my 10-year longevity, so I never forgot it.
Where is that? Is that in the pay plan ordinance that
Yes.
We're allowing longevity?
It's not in the ordinance, it's in our policies. It's pay plan and the
So you
school's
could change
union, so
that
they
if-
get like percentages of their
Yeah.
pay or a week's pay
So
or.
you're trying to do something for pay plan employees?
We're trying, and, you know, I actually
Like the
have our
unions do.
HR director looking at our antiquated policies, and, you know, and as you know, I've been trying to keep people up, at least for COLAs, regularly, annual COLAs, similar to the bargaining units. But, other than that, it's,
Do you have any,
Needs work.
on a department by department basis, do they have rules around overtime?
Yeah, we don't.
they don't get
Yeah,
any.
we don't get it.
That was
plan
gonna be my
employees-
question.
Yeah, I'm
Pay
sorry.
plan employees
But
don't.
yet we
Like
budget
under
for
pay
it
plan.
because you never know.
Okay.
Well, like,
All right, let me explain.
Where is that listed?
Oh, under
oh,
overtime.
and that's,
I went
Very.
down too
Yeah,
far.
so that would be the, okay, so you'll see in a couple of budgets, you'll see that. You'll see it in our building operations budget, and that would be our custodian for like overtime, shoveling. He goes over his 40 hours. So that one's gotta be the
It's
the,
good.
the van driver.
Okay.
And, you know, if he, for some reason,
His
goes
leave
over
is-
his 40 hours and
Legally, you have to pay him.
but, yeah, so, and sometimes what happens is, he will be the only one to, like, if the director is out and he needs to be in there, things
well,
like
they're
that.
open.
They're open on Saturday and Thursday
So
nights.
like the normal weekend person wasn't there, I mean, I don't know.
Do you have to pay in lieu of time off?
What we do,
Or can you-
what we do is we have two different policies. If you're a department head, supervisor, like Melissa, you, are eligible for flex time.
Okay.
If you're a 35-hour person and you work 40, then that's flex for you. It's given as flex because you're a manager.
Mhm.
And you should know next week you can come in late, come in,
It's
late.
Make
like
up
comp
the
time in a
Yes.
sense?
So
or is that
for other employees, like my staffer,
Mhm.
she's not a
Nikki.
department head, they get comp time.
Okay.
And comp time, if she was here, like she was last week.
Yep.
An extra
Over
hour or
hours,
two.
then she puts in for compensatory time.
Okay.
And, she can use that at a later date, but that's actually, it has to be approved to earn it, has to be approved to use it, and.
So
and
it's like if
zeros
I
out.
wanna take, I
Like,
have a whole day's worth of comp time, I'm gonna take an extra day of vacation, if you approve it, that's what she would get.
It doesn't normally, the policy doesn't normally work like that, that's why it's being fixed. Like, that's gonna be one of our policies that we look at, not just the vacation, but compensatory time. And by the way,
How
if
much
that
you
was
can
more than the
take.
40 hours, it would be 1.5, it would be earned at 1.5.
Oh.
So it's, comp time is geared to not use it like that, it's not used to save it up.
Right.
I
It's
see.
used
Use it
to,
within the
next
next
week,
week or
take two,
something.
It
go
has to be
home
done
early
within
on
a
a
week.
Thursday.
It has to be
It's-
done within a week if it's.
Or-
Right, well, if it's in the same week, it's pretty much a wash, but if it's a week or two later, but it's a really outdated
can't bank
policy that needs to, and the difference between comp time and flex time is a very big difference.
Mhm.
If somebody were to leave, comp time is it's a liability, it's
Right.
compensatory time and you'd have to pay out for it. So if somebody left with 20 hours comp time, not only would they get their accrued vacation,
They get
they
that.
would also get comp
So
time.
it's on the books.
So you're trying to
Yeah.
not allow it to accrue.
We don't, honestly, we really have very little, very few people here. Flex time is your managers and, and they know when they're earning it and, we feel
Yeah.
that they have the authority to run a department.
Right.
They certainly have the authority to take time off when, when it's appropriate for them based on, the demands of their office. But both of those
Similar to
policies
us
need to
where
be fixed.
I'm a salary, what they call
Yeah.
non-exempt employee.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, I'm an exempt employee, so I don't have to, I don't get overtime, I don't get,
that's right,
but I can take time off as long as I.
exactly. It's exactly like that.
I don't have to put 40 hours in a week
Right.
if I don't need to, but there's some weeks where I might put 60, I don't get paid for that extra 40. That's how it works at Smith anyway. All right, so let's go to, what's next, veterans? Unless you guys have anything else on the aging?
I assume this whole group 3, is somehow
Holdovers.
dismantled, because there's nothing in the budget for that group?
Those are the holdovers.
So that's it.
They happen
were.
as they happen?
No, that's, if
if I order something in June, like June 25th, and my bill isn't gonna show up until July, and so therefore I've ordered it and it's part of this year's budget for the item that I'm purchasing, I write my PO, it's out of this year's budget, and then my purchase order is held over to the next year. So it will reflect if I spent money in fiscal 17 that was really fiscal 16's money, because
Okay.
I
Held it over.
So next year, we'll see whatever happened in this.
Right, you hold it
Correct.
over.
Okay.
And you can, and it happens a lot, even in utilities and things, because you're not gonna get the bill to pay June until July, so you need to hold over that amount. But it's not just utilities, it can be, anything, but so if you ordered something or a service or any type of supply in June, you can't pay for that in next year's money. So you hold the money over so that you can, so they're
Okay.
holdovers.
Okay.
Anything else on aging?
No?
And I have to really commend Valerie, our auditor, on the holdover situation. She certainly straightened that out. That was something that needed to be cleaned up, and she's cleaned it up, a few years ago, where you hold over only what you need, what you use, and then it's gone. And she actually just sent out
There were 4 things on it.
the holdover notices. And in past years, people just easier, just hold it all over. Because I'm not sure I might get an invoice
Yeah,
in.
right.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So she's, she really, I think she's done a great job on it. And I was just saying, she just sent out actually a holdover notice of things that have been held over, and there were only 4 things on it. In other words, if you need it, use it. If you're gonna need it, use it. But if you haven't used it so far and you're not gonna anticipate it because it's late, close it out. Close
Yeah.
out the purchase
They don't
order.
rush to spend all their
So
money.
she can clean,
before the end of
she
the
can
year.
clean up the books, because you couldn't use holdover money for this year. It would have to be from last year. So if you didn't get the bill yet, close it out.
Yeah.
But
So
she's
we'll
done
wait.
she's done a really good job on that. I have to commend her for that.
Veterans, as we talked about, we don't know what the veterans' needs will be, and if we need them like we did this year, we use reserve, free cash, whatever, to supplement the budget. This money, because we have a veterans agent that serves more than one community, this is money that targets East Hampton veterans, correct?
Oh, yes, and he breaks it
Absolutely.
up. We have quarterly meetings, it's the Veterans Council, and he's an employee of the Veterans Counselor District. I always mix up those 2 words. We have quarterly meetings, and he has them completely separate. We have him Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoon. Those days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning is South Hadley, and Granby has him on Friday.
So we're basically paying a third of his budget, or is it the budget based on the amount of
Equalized value.
veterans? Equalized value.
And we're the highest, believe it or not,
We have more veterans?
At one time, no, it's based on your equalized value of your community, and at one time, South Hadley, was higher rated than us, and now we're just slightly higher than, obviously, we're a big difference between the size of Granby and the values, but, South
Okay.
Hadley, so we pay, the highest, but it's slightly higher than South Hadley.
Okay.
But it's a great setup, it's a great service.
Yeah.
It serves us well.
Well, it certainly serves the 3 communities well, because it would be hard to hire a part-time veterans agent if you couldn't find other work along the same lines from them.
Well, at one time, there was a full-time veterans agent and a full-time veterans clerk.
Here?
Yep,
Okay.
moving on.
Okay. Do you ever have to negotiate with the other communities, anything about this?
Yes, we
arrangement?
meet every quarter, and we go over our budget, what our budget's gonna be for the year.
So it's mostly
what
financial?
supplies. Yep.
Okay.
So he or she knows.
We have
what-
to pay into his retirement, he has his own retirement, we have to go over his sick time, all of that.
And you negotiate the amount of service he provides per community based on the amount of veterans in each of the communities or something?
It's equalized value is our
Really?
percentage, so it's divided 3 ways.
But that's including service time too?
That's it,
Like you
like,
said,
yeah.
4 days a week?
Everything, everything that we provide, like whatever he needs, but when you see this part of the budget, this is the things that he does just here. This is a different section. So
Which
for
one
his
is
services.
this Veterans benefits you're talking?
When you see like, okay, when you go under the 5430, you see his postage and his,
Yeah.
you know, things like that, that's just here. That's our,
The other towns have their own line items for this.
yes. What we split is the cost of his services.
Okay.
So the veterans benefits here, these are just here too, that's 5440
That's direct payments to the vet.
Yep.
in our community,
So
right?
that's what he's facilitating? Okay.
Okay.
Where are you?
The next page.
5440?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that's what he gives out, and that's what we get a year later, 75%. The state provides us with a 75% reimbursement, and then, but it comes a year later.
Is Survival Center broken down, or is that just one figure? I don't see it in here.
It's not, we haven't used it in quite a few years, but it still shows up because there was, a
Oh, I'm sorry, I
2015.
didn't even see, it's a 0%, yeah, I see. We haven't used it since 15, okay.
Right.
Sorry. Okay, I have no other questions on human services?
Nope.
I move that the City Council Finance Committee recommend to the full council that the city raise and appropriate the sum of $635,967.25 for the various departments listed under Section 5 Human Services, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations as recommended by the Mayor and Finance Subcommittee.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Last one is debt. Debt service, page 7. Everything went down.
Yeah, that's how we roll. No,
Melissa's getting us out of debt.
so the public safety complex came off.
Paid off, yeah.
So that's a big portion of it. We refinanced a couple years ago, so the way the debt's structured is, we're paying it off more aggressively, which is good, and we got a much better interest rate, so things are coming down as we start to pay things off. You know, we can borrow more money and pop it right back up there.
Can I ask you a
We
question?
will be.
The public safety building was an exclusion debt, correct?
That's correct.
So I know we've raised our taxes 2.5%, like we can. Does the taxpayer see any reduction because an exclusion debt has been taken off the rolls?
You would think, but no.
You laugh at that. Well, I think that's a legitimate question.
Well, but you would, but with the other increases, you're not.
Yeah.
So in other
But if
words,
that
it's
debt was
less.
Line
still
by
there.
line, you'd see it, but
Right.
it gets watered down from everything else.
But if that debt
it
was still there,
on
the increase
there,
would
it
be
a
higher,
little-
wouldn't it?
Yes.
So that is a reduction. In other words, the increase would be more
That's right.
if we still had to pay that.
That's right.
So if somebody asked me, yes,
Yeah.
you would be paying
It's
more
off
in your
your,
taxes.
it's off your taxes.
It is.
That's right.
That's
Come off.
You're smiling, it is, right?
Absolutely. We're just thinking of all the things we'd like to put on.
Yeah, but you have to ask for debt exclusion override.
Or,
Well, you don't have to.
no, and we were talking about
We
debt.
do have this
Nothing wrong with borrowing
$1 million
money.
So the
school coming up.
The thing about debt exclusion is that just like the debt that we're carrying now, you know, it goes out and you're like, oh my goodness, it's gonna be X number per household per year.
Right.
Well, that's what it is in the beginning, but because we pay level principal amounts, it goes from a quarter down to 20 cents, down to 5 cents in the last year, and then it disappears. So by the time it disappears, you've lopped on $3.
And so you can't even see
You
it.
can't see it. But I
But
mean,
it's
I can.
there. And now it's gone.
You know, with other
Richer.
projects and
I'm going
2.5% increases and the changes in values
Yeah.
and all those other good things,
There's
so.
too many levers to try to,
Yeah.
there's just so many.
Well, when the high school comes off, that's a big chunk of cash, so that might actually,
Well, then
we'll probably
have
put
the
another one
Middle
back.
school on it, so that'll replace
Yes.
that.
Okay, so looking at debt principal, it's always the same. So we pay $700,000 for the high school every year, in principal,
In principle,
basically. And
Yeah.
it doesn't go down year by year,
no,
because we determined in refinancing, we want to do that.
right, and that's typically the way that you do it, because it grants you the best rate. And so, but what does go down is the interest on that debt goes down every year. So-
Because there's less.
Because there's less, yeah. So, you know,
I
it
can
was
see it
400,
went down
it
to
was,
386 next year.
yeah, I think it was 400 last year.
750, 750.
So there's where you see the savings. So if you thought of that as the debt exclusion in and of itself, the amount that it increased your taxes last year was more than the amount that it increased your taxes this year,
Mhm.
but it doesn't feel that way
Because of everything else.
because of everything.
Well, there's always an increase. I like to think of it, well, if we still had to pay for all these debts, it would still be higher.
Way higher.
Well, it's going to be way higher. Some of this debt exclusion is enterprise money though, right? Like the sewer, is that enterprise?
Water and sewer, pay for their own debt, yeah.
What is
But it's all included in here, in this
Wastewater
budget.
treatment plant,
Thank you.
one
Oh,
place to
wait,
go.
that's not the one that's zero.
Field trip?
The Principal Integrated Water Research Management, residential management, that's at 0, and now it's gonna be at 45,000.
Right, so we're doing a study, and this is our first year that we're paying for it.
I remember passing that, didn't we, just recently? Okay.
As a
So
matter of fact.
it's a study of all of the underground stuff, the stuff that you
Right,
can't
we
see.
passed
Did
that,
you see
there's a
them?
tremendous amount of money involved, and that's just a study.
Yep,
If
there's
we
a
have to
million
replace a lot of sewer and water lines,
Did you see,
We won't be building any
on
schools
Union
for
Street
long
this
term.
morning, you'll see, the trucks on Union Streets were putting, right outside the Big E's.
Yeah.
That was part of that study. They were putting in the cameras and
Oh.
what they're trying to do is like check all our infrastructure from from
a
underground.
lot of it is
Alright.
100 years old.
We
Sure.
needed to have a study and a plan, with people, you can't expect people to be here for 200 years, and you need to know what you have and what your infrastructure, the state of your infrastructure is. We also knew that some strict DEP regulations are gonna be coming our way, and we would be ready for them, know where our crucial areas are.
But this way, X-rays and the cameras and
Yep.
everything will be able to tell you which pipes are in danger, and you can target that for
It's
repair.
Kleinfelder and Ty and Bond that
You know,
were
I
hired. for
remember that. That's a big.
Yeah, it was a big one.
What is MW PAT subsidy?
Okay, so, when we do, a big water sewer project, there's something called it used to be called the MWPAT. I'm not sure what that's in, and now it's like Mass MC, it's Mass Clean Water, something, whatever. And what they do is they're a lending agency for municipalities to do, infrastructure projects, that relate to clean water.
Okay.
Transporting clean water and getting unclean water cleaned. So anything in that.
It's all about cleaning
It's
water.
all about cleaning water. So we get loans through them, and they're usually very beneficial in their interest rates and the way that they structure them. And they just have this system where you borrow the money, and then they put you in this huge pool when they decide that, okay, all 6 communities that have short-term money, we're going in next week. And we borrow that money, and then you have an administrative fee, and then sometimes there's a credit, we're doing this because we want people to do blah, and so that credit gets shown every single year as a credit against your interest or
Okay.
principal. And so we just, in order to report what the true debt is, like in order to pay it off, we actually have to pay $100,000 a year, but we don't pay $100,000 a year, we pay $69,000 a year because they give us 30.
They subsidize it.
They subsidize it.
But
So-
this is done.
We're done now, or we
No.
only use it as we need it?
What we do
So
is
you don't budget for it?
we don't budget for it, and it's a journal entry so that the accountant's books remain correct is what our true outstanding debt is.
So right now, we have none, but
You don't
potentially
budget
next
for it.
year.
I budget the net, and so she will show not only the credit, but also an expense, and they wash each other out.
Okay.
Because I know that my payments is gonna be $69,000, but the truth is, that I got $31,000 in credit. But if she doesn't show that on her books, when we report our outstanding obligations to the world, when we go out for debt,
DOR or whatever.
we have to show that, well, if they didn't give us the credit, we actually owe this amount of money back. So we only take the credit when we actually receive it every year.
And unless we.
I actually understood that.
Unless we go out and participate in this year?
No, we'll get it.
Okay. So,
It's-
so this is ongoing, you just don't put it in the.
No, instead of, if I put it in there, it, would gross up the actual payment amount, like, so.
So many
like-
ways.
Right, so like, if we look at the wastewater treatment plant phase 2, that $38,000, pretty sure that's one of them. I really have to put in like $45,000 there, and then put in the 7,000 in that credit. A negative 7,000 in the credit.
Okay.
Because if you look at her,
If you look at the summary, it shows 84,000 from last year. And it shows it as a,
right, but if you look at the detail, in the expense, it also shows a the credit. It nets to zero. It's an accounting function. It has nothing to do with true cost. So if we asked you to vote that in the budget, you'd be voting more than we need.
got it. So in other words, we're not budgeting for it because we're not gonna need it. I think that's what I understand. Unless they don't give us the money.
And Valerie asked me specifically not to put it in the budget because she likes to do it her way.
Which
Can we
is
stop
when it,
talking about it?
when it happens.
And we like Valerie's, we
like
like to make
Valerie's
Valerie
way.
happy. When
She's the
Valerie,
auditor.
when Valerie's happy, we're
all
happy.
Okay.
Can I,
So we have.
I'll
that's
wait
on
until the
tape.
button's pushed, but I have a question.
So I just wanted
You-
to.
Pushing buttons.
Okay,
Oh, I know what button.
I don't have anything else on debt service. Happy that we finally paid off the public safety building.
I know. How long was that?
20 years.
20 years.
I remember voting it. I've been here a long time. So, public, what are we doing? Debt
Debt and interest.
is 7. I move that the City Council Finance Committee recommend to the full council that the city raise and appropriate the sum of $2,182,079.75 for the various departments listed under Section 7, debt and interest, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred or raised as recommended by the Mayor and Finance Subcommittee: Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, $519,065.60. Debt exclusion taxation to be reduced for reserves for amortization, $3,310. All in favor? We're done. We adjourn. Next one is Monday. May 22nd is Monday, right? Yes.
Yes, Monday. So Monday is public safety, general government, right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.